In the quiet suburbs of North Las Vegas, a shocking murder sent ripples through a tight-knit community. A beloved pastor, a man known for his sermons, charity, and guidance, was found slumped behind the wheel of his car, shot dead in broad daylight. His name was Nick Davy, and to his congregation, he was more than a preacher. He was a mentor, a husband, a father. But as investigators dug deeper, they discovered a side of Pastor Davy that few could have imagined. Because this wasn't a random act of violence. It wasn't a robbery gone wrong. The person tied to his death wasn't a stranger. She was his neighbor, a woman in her 30s identified as Jo Junio, a Las Vegas realtor who also maintained a provocative online presence as an OnlyFans creator under the name Zysa Zula. She had reportedly been involved with Davy in a sugar arrangement and had even posted online about wanting to avoid nightmare neighbors. The fallout from that secret turned deadly. This is the story of how a hidden relationship spiraled into tragedy. A story about trust, deception, power, and the lies we hide behind closed doors. It's a true crime tale that captures the dangers of living a double life in the age of digital exposure, and how one man's secret relationship may have cost him everything. To the public, Pastor Nick Davy was a pillar of the community. At 51 years old, he had built a reputation as a kind, charismatic, and deeply spiritual leader. He preached about faith, family, and personal responsibility, often referencing the importance of honesty and trust. He had a wife, children, and a loyal congregation that viewed him as a moral compass. But as detectives would soon learn, the image was carefully maintained. Off the pulpit, Davy had become entangled in a hidden relationship that clashed with everything he preached. Reports suggest this wasn't an isolated lapse in judgment. Davy had been leading a double life, one built on secrecy, financial arrangements, and private communications far removed from his public persona. The connection between Pastor Davy and Jo Junio was far from casual. Investigators uncovered a sugar arrangement, a discreet transactional relationship built around financial support and personal access. Davy is believed to have provided her with regular payments in exchange for companionship and privacy, keeping the arrangement hidden from his family and congregation. But what began as controlled and covert soon turned volatile. Private messages between them, recovered from Davy's phone, revealed rising tensions. There were requests for more money, emotional confrontations, and hints that Davy may have wanted to end the relationship. Whether out of guilt, fear of exposure, or a desire to reclaim his public image, Davy appeared ready to walk away. Junio, police believe, wasn't willing to let him go quietly. Las Vegas is a city built on fantasy, a place where image is currency, and reinvention is part of the culture. For someone like Jo Junio, the city offered both opportunity and pressure. Publicly, she worked as a realtor. But behind the filtered photos and property listings, she was also navigating another reality, one shaped by online platforms, curated personas, and the promise of fast income. According to investigators, Junio had been active on adult content platforms for some time, using the alias Zysa Zula to build a paying subscriber base. For many creators in Las Vegas, platforms like OnlyFans aren't just about expression. They're about survival. Rent is high, competition is fierce, and social media has turned private lives into marketable assets. Junio wasn't unique in that sense. She was part of a growing subculture in cities like Vegas, where beauty, access, and online attention can open doors, but also create dangerous dependencies. In that world, connections are often transactional, and for those struggling to balance two identities, the pressure to maintain control and income can become overwhelming. Police believe it was in this context that she met Pastor Davy, a man with resources, a man who promised discretion, and for a time, a man who helped sustain both halves of her life until that balance started to collapse. On the evening of December 29, 2023, Pastor Nick Davy returned home from a family outing. As he pulled into the driveway with his wife and two children, a woman approached the vehicle. According to police, it was Jo Junio, and she was armed. Without warning, she allegedly opened fire. Davy was shot in the abdomen while still in the driver's seat. His wife, attempting to intervene, was also shot in the arm. Their two children, ages 12 and 15, witnessed the attack and managed to record parts of the incident on a phone. The engine was still running. The doors remained unlocked, What had been a routine evening suddenly became a crime scene. From the beginning, investigators knew this wasn't random. Davy's wallet and phone were untouched. There were no signs of robbery or struggle. Surveillance footage from neighbors confirmed that someone had been waiting nearby, someone who knew his routine and exactly when to strike. Police described the shooting as deliberate, personal, and calculated. In the hours after the shooting, detectives from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department began tracing every lead, and the first clue came from Pastor Davy's phone. Inside were messages that revealed a private, emotionally charged relationship with Joe Junio. These weren't casual conversations. They were intimate, transactional, and had become increasingly hostile in the days leading up to the attack. Financial records showed a clear pattern. Davy had sent multiple payments to accounts linked to Junio. Police also traced messages through encrypted apps, including requests for money, veiled threats, and arguments that suggested the relationship was unraveling. Investigators believe Davy may have been trying to cut ties, something that may have triggered panic or retaliation. The digital trail didn't end there. Location data placed Junio near the crime scene, and surveillance footage confirmed her presence in the area just before the shooting. Even more damning, police uncovered records showing she had recently acquired a handgun using a false address. That weapon matched the ballistics from the scene. When brought in for questioning, Junio initially denied involvement, but inconsistencies in her story, paired with the overwhelming digital evidence, left little room for doubt. She was arrested and charged soon after. What had started as a private arrangement was now a public criminal case. Why would someone turn on the very person who had supported them financially and helped keep their secret? For investigators, the answer pointed to a toxic mix of money, power, and fear. Text messages between Davy and Junio suggested he was pulling away, cutting off payments, threatening to block her, and possibly warning he might expose their relationship. For someone whose livelihood and online identity depended on discretion, that kind of threat could have felt existential. Financial pressure and fear of public shame may have collided in a way that left her feeling cornered. There's also the possibility of emotional fallout. Though their arrangement was transactional, some reports suggest that Junio may have expected more, not just money, but loyalty. As control shifted, frustration and resentment appear to have grown. For a relationship built on secrecy, even the smallest shift in power can spark instability. Police believe it wasn't just about losing financial support. It was about losing control. And in a situation where both sides had something to lose, the fear of being exposed may have pushed her to act in the most extreme way possible. Pastor Nick Davy's story isn't just about a man who lived a double life. It's about a wider cultural shift happening in plain sight. In a world where digital platforms blur the line between public image and private behavior, secrets don't stay buried. And for those living in the space between, the consequences can be devastating. Sugar culture, the informal economy of relationships based on money, influence, and intimacy, has grown alongside platforms like OnlyFans and Snapchat. For some, it offers empowerment and independence. For others, it's a form of survival. But when power dynamics are unbalanced and everything hinges on discretion, even minor ruptures can trigger major fallout. This case also highlights the digital footprints we leave behind. Once, arrangements like this might have stayed hidden. Now, location data, encrypted messages, payment logs, and social media blur the boundaries between the physical and digital world. What once felt private can become public in seconds. Davy's story is a warning, not just about moral failure or secrecy, but about what happens when digital intimacy turns toxic, and when two realities collide with no one willing to back down. Pastor Nick Davy lived in two worlds. By day, he preached about faith, values, and community. By night, he was engaged in a secret arrangement built on money, silence, and deception. That double life unraveled not through scandal, but through violence, in front of his wife and children, in the place he called home. The woman at the center of it all, Joe Junio, now faces serious charges. Her role in Davy's life began behind closed doors, but ended in full public view. And whether driven by fear, betrayal, or desperation, her decision to confront Davy didn't just end a relationship, it destroyed lives. This wasn't just a story of one man's hypocrisy or one woman's retaliation. It was a collision of power, secrecy, and exposure in a world where privacy is vanishing fast. In an age of digital footprints and blurred identities, living a double life is no longer just risky. It can be fatal.